Welcome to the Handed Down Kitchen, where we bring antique recipes out of the past and back into the kitchen. Today we'll be sharing with you a 1940s recipe for raspberry buns. They're more soft jam-filled cookies than buns, just what you want beside a cup of tea. This recipe is from our copy of the Manual of Modern Cookery, which was published in 1943. It yields around 10 to 12 buns or cookies, and to make them you'll need the following ingredients. 6 ounces, that's 170 grams of plain flour. 2 ounces, that's 57 grams of ground rice. 3 ounces, it's 85 grams of sugar, we're using caster sugar. A teaspoonful of baking powder. A pinch of salt. 1.5 ounces, that's 43 grams of lard. And the same weight of margarine, 1 egg, some milk, about 2 tablespoonfuls of raspberry jam, and some icing sugar. We'll start by making a dough. In a basin, pour your flour, the ground rice, and a pinch of salt, and mix these together. Next, add in the fats, the margarine and the lard, and rub these in to combine until they start coming together like breadcrumbs. Then add the sugar and the baking powder and mix these in. Crack in the egg, we're using a medium-sized one, and mix this in as well. Then once that's combined, add in just a little milk until it all starts coming together as quite a stiff dough. In 1943, with World War II far from over, these ingredients would have been rationed, and to make this recipe, which would have used up much of a person's weekly allowance of ingredients, they'd really have to plan and save up for it. Overall, we've used about 2 tablespoonfuls of milk, so not much. Now we have our dough, we're going to make our buns. So give your working area a good dusting of flour and turn out your dough onto it. Take off little pieces of the dough and with your hands roll them out into balls. You can always weigh each ball so they're all the same size, and if you do that you'll probably get 12. But personally, unless the recipe asks it of us, we don't usually bother doing so. After all, when it comes to eating them, sometimes you want a smaller one and sometimes you'd rather a bigger one. We ended up with 11 here. Now, one at a time, we'll take a ball, roll it out a little to flatten it just like this. Then take some jam, 1/2 or 3/4 of a teaspoonful, and put it in the middle. Now, very carefully, we're going to gather up the edges around the jam to close the bun up completely. This part can be a bit fiddly, so go as slowly as you like and try to close it up so the jam doesn't leak out. Then turn it in your hands gently to make it into a ball again. This part is similar to the 1930s Eccles cakes we made recently. Have a flat, well-greased baking tin ready and space out your buns onto it. We could have spaced ours out a little more. Lightly mark the tops of each. It doesn't say how, so we're doing crosses. And off into a hot oven they go for 20 to 30 minutes. You'll know when they're done because they'll be nicely golden. Put them on a wire rack to cool down, and when they're cool or nearly cool, sprinkle some icing sugar over them to finish them off. Then they're ready to eat. You can see why we say these are more like cookies than buns. Once baked, the dough is like a very soft, crumbly shortbread, and you have this gorgeous, sweet, jammy middle. And if you prefer, you can always use a different sort of jam, lemon curd, or even chocolate spread. At the end of the recipe, there's a note called variation of shape, where it's cooked as one large slab rather than individual buns. Cut up, this makes little squares that would look really good on a cake stand if you're putting together an afternoon tea. We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please leave us a like, and if you'd like to see us recreate more antique recipes, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also find full instructions for this recipe and many more on our website, linked in the description box below.